Hello, everyone, and welcome back to round 14 of the 2022 Scrabble Players Championship. This is the live stream presented by Scrabble Go. I am Morris Greenberg, and I am here with Matthew Kanik and Sean Abbasi for the final game of day two, featuring Wasim Khatri, who is, I think, the Pakistani national champion, and Matthew Tunnicliffe, a former North American Scrabble Players Association champion himself. What are you guys looking for in this round?
I think we're going to look for good Scrabble.
Done.
I think we're going to look for really good Scrabble. Having played both these players, they're both players who have won at a top level before. So that is something of great significance. We're looking at two champions playing each other. And Matthew has won big here in North America. Wasim won some great online tournaments as well as big tournaments in Pakistan year over year for a long time has inspired the big wave of Pakistani players. So I think we're just going to be seeing a lot of fun words, a lot of variety, and they both have a lot of personality in the way they play. So in terms of like just different word choices that they put down and so forth. So this should be a good battle.
Yeah, I know Matthew, at least when I played him in the past in the North American Dictionary, was super good at opportune phoning. I'm guessing he can't do that as much in Collins. Have you noticed any crazy phonies he's gone past players in Collins, Sean?
You know, that's interesting because when I played him in an NWL game in one Canadian Championship, or TWL at the time, I had heard that about his reputation, and he played a valid word on me, but I was overly expecting, maybe he was trying to game me with my, like, at the time, especially my confusion between what was Collins and what wasn't, and I challenged something that was valid, even though I kind of knew the word. I just wasn't sure if it was in TWL. So I think you're right that in Collins that probably won't be the case. And while he definitely leverages that strategy in TWL, I don't think that Matthew in any way is dependent on phonies to win. He's got all the tools to play all the valid words and stick to that in the strategy. And I don't think he's going to be trying any tricky gamesmanship from that regard.
Yeah, and the chat points out, Alex Ding specifically, where's the cue? This is rigged. So, Matt, we finally see a game where the cue isn't on one of the first two racks.
And of course, ironically, it comes when he does draw two U's and could really honestly use a Q with this rack. So rigged, I don't like this, boo. That's how I feel. But Wasim does have a couple options. I wouldn't be surprised to see him just throw two tiles back in the bag, both of those U's. I think now as well is an option, and it would be interesting to see where he plays that as well, because he has the option to put the second U on the star, which would allow possible setups for the Z, but that's going to be thwarted most of the time. So maybe he puts the first U on the star in a more standard form, or maybe he does just throw back the two. As we've said, we don't like floating tiles very often, especially when we're only scoring 8 points. So definitely an interesting decision for Wasim. And honestly, I am so excited to watch him play. I know the scene, and particularly the youth scene in Pakistan, is really taking off. And Wasim being here at a tournament held in North America, I think is super cool for the growth of the game. And I'm just excited to see what he offers. So there does come Unao, and he's not opting for the setup necessarily. It does take that S that he's leaving, but it doesn't set up the ZA overlaps for 50 points or so.
Yeah, I'm surprised by this play. Like I thought that an exchange was going to come for sure. I feel like at this level, even though it's on a lot of different letters, N, A, and U can be useful. And if somebody's sitting on a Q, then you're just throwing out an option for them to get out of jail with that. So I feel like that maybe a little bit less optimal, but it was definitely among the very few words that he could play. So short of that, it seems okay. What do you guys think?
I would have played Unao in that situation. Depending on my mood, changing UU I think is absolutely a defensible play as well. But I like getting a word out there that capitalizes on the S that I'm currently sitting on as well. And that U in a double-double is just not all that dangerous. The way the A and the N float out there are not particularly dangerous. Yeah, they do allow bingos, but they're 60-pointers. So I would have opted to play Unao as Wasim chose to do. And Matthew is driving me nuts with the way his patented way of organizing his tiles, all the consonants first, all the vowels second. It makes it so hard for me to understand what's going on, but he's always done that. And he's going to come back with TYE underneath, which is a great play, capitalizing on a place to put that Y. It looks like Wasim is going to be able to capitalize on the Z after that and hit ZEA quickly for a good amount of points, holding ENST. That's a really solid leave, and we'll see where we go from here. Matthew does have the X, and with the ZE opportunities in the CSW lexicon, I think we're going to see probably Dex or something like that, just another brainless, dump. As we said, Z and X, that is what they exist for, just dropping them down for 40 points.
Yeah, and this is starting to get very staircasey as a game. We haven't seen too many staircasey kinds of games, but it just naturally, the plays that are best for these players happen to be the ones that create all of these underlaps or overlaps. One other option is he could play Exceed if he wanted to make it a bit longer, but I like the idea of Dex, as Matt was saying.
Yeah, and for Wasim, he played that ZEA quickly, which was a fairly straightforward play, and allowed him to also make up a bit of the time that he used in the opening turn. So I think now for Matthew, he can think about this a little bit further, but there's really not a whole lot of other options to weigh here, so it does turn out to be Dex.
Yeah, he briefly had text set up there. I'm wondering if he thought about, do I keep the D for Z as an option, since it is such a staircasey kind of game already. But I think either is reasonable there.
So Wasim keeps loading Festing, which I don't think is valid, unless it's come in recently, because I have a wrong dictionary in front of me. Someone want to double check that?
I don't see it either. I just checked it with our bot, our handy little bot. Wasim is going into the bag, and it looks like this one's going to go through. That's a shocker. I know wearing a mask really helps with the poker face, but wow, I said I didn't expect to see any phonies in CSW, and yet here we go. Third game in, we do have a phony bingo that comes down when there were not many other good options. Super curious if Wasim just played it because he didn't have any other good plays after Dex, or if he truly thought it was good. Maybe it was a combination of the two, but very interesting there that we see it go. And I don't think Matthew Tunnicliffe has been playing a ton of CSW, so maybe that's, I don't know, maybe he thinks it's a Collins only word. Very, very interesting though. Did not expect that to happen. Wow. There is our cue. It took us a couple more turns. We had to play off the U's first, but we do have it early in the game. Things are good in the world again.
Yeah, I do think that for certain kinds of words, it doesn't matter the type of penalty. If you just don't register that it is a phony, you just won't even think of challenging in either penalty system. Right? Like if you just think, oh yeah, Festing, I've studied that before, and then you realize, oh wait, I didn't. It's too late.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that Wasim, I don't think Wasim played it as an intentional phony. I don't feel that way, but I could be wrong. I think that maybe he thought it was legit, and because he looked at it a couple of times, and I don't know. That perplexes me a lot, and I think that he may have thought it was legit, which still surprises me. So, very, very interesting thing that we're learning here. But that being said, if it works, it works, and now we're going to see what Matthew can do to respond. I think Cotted might be an option in a couple spots. I kind of like it with Zed.
Yeah, Cotted I think is definitely far and away the play. It is tough to pull the trigger on words like that. I don't see why it wouldn't be, and I'm pretty sure I've studied cotting, but am I 100% in 5-point challenge to pull a trigger on this 6-letter word? Now Matthew's a good enough player. I think he does know that word and he's going to go for it. And that's going to score a ton of points for him too. But wow, I'm still shocked that we saw a phony bingo get through in this game so early.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he could also do coded COTED without the second T there for 8 fewer points and not open up the triple. I'm wondering if he's considering that at all. That one he should be pretty confident about, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, cotted, I think, is the standard, but Chad has pointed out cotted is Collins only, and I'm really unfamiliar with how much Collins Matthew Tunnicliffe knows, and he's already shown his word knowledge is a little bit shaky by accepting that phony. With 5-point challenge, it's very hard to play a word unless you're very sure of it. So it looks like he's opting to keep things a little bit smaller. He's got ECOD going down, keeping double T's, which I think is kind of curious. I'd rather play coted, COTED, than to do something like that. But that's what he elects to do. I'm sure he's got a rationale for why he's elected to do that. And we'll turn over back to Wasim and his cue.
Well, this has helped Wasim a lot because you can see he's got WHO lined up for that little underlap, which will score well and make the cue seem less unattractive because now it's just sitting with an E and an N and a blank. And things can happen that might even turn that into a high-scoring play.
Yeah, that is going to be just absolutely devastating. EWCHDOO just allows for a ton of points. Not always thrilled to retain a Q, especially with 2 U's out, but there is a good spot to drop QI. Should Wasim draw an I, there's actually a couple of them. And with that blank, you've got a good amount of flexibility. So that just scores so well, you've got to do it. He is still looking at this play, maybe thought for a moment about considering queen, making sure he didn't miss any better overlaps, but Who is definitely going to be the top play there, and that's what Wasim likes to do.
Yeah, and if you're Matt, you didn't get the draw you wanted, keeping TET, drawing almost an EIEIO rack, as we like to say, but it was EIOO. So he might exchange here. It's not looking that great. He could play Toonie at least.
Collins has TOETOE, and if Matthew knows that word, that is probably the thing he needs to do here. Blow it all up, blow this board wide open.
I don't know if I would go that far. I feel like he's behind, but it's still pretty early in the game. Maybe a play like Oot would just be fine and just hope to draw a little bit better and turn it around. Like I think like NO go and Oot would score 11 points, but if you combine that with an R or an N or something in the next turn, you'll be back in shape for potentially bingoing, and it opens up that. So
yeah, I think this is a key difference in Colin's strategy and NWL strategy. Once you start adding more words, it is more okay to keep 3 vowels and 1 consonant in Collins than in NWL. I think there's just more possibilities where you draw into something that works out, whereas in NWL, that can often be more dire of a draw after the fact.
I adamantly disagree with that assessment. In Collins, really? I am more inclined to dump my vowels. I want as many consonants as possible. I cannot afford to play 00 for 12 because my opponents are going to be scoring 40 every turn, and I just can't get stuck making plays like Toonie for 12. Although I will say I appreciate Matthew Tunnicliffe playing Toonie, flicking his Canadian, and kind of misspelling his name a little bit. So that's cool. Well done.
Great extra point there, but normally, I think this E slotted under this triple letter score would be kind of a concern, but maybe with the Z already being out, that becomes a little less scary. And then, this turns out that Wasim is not going to really be able to do much with any of that. He can. I don't think he can really unload his queue in any meaningful way, unless I've missed something.
No. And Matthew amazingly draws into and set himself up for on stage and toonies. I don't see that getting blocked with what Wasim has drawn. So that'll be a big one for Matthew to pull his way back into this game.
Yeah, I mean, do you burn the blank here if you're Wasim and play queen?
Yes. How could you not score 45? What are your other options? You have to. It's not fun. You don't want to, but you need to.
Well, I think queen. I might even do the 36-point queen just because the 45-pointer, and that's underneath who making three different underlaps of U, CHE, and DOON. That will give back an easy QI spot for 33 right away. So that feels queen for 45 to me feels like it's not worth burning the blank. Queen for 36, I might lean towards though.
I would play queen for 45 here. Remind me, Morris, what is the average score for one play in a game of Scrabble?
I actually don't know this.
Roughly, in Collins, I'd imagine Division One, it's probably close to 36 to 38 points. If my opponent plays QI, yeah, it's a brainless, easy play. I don't care. It's an average play. So I'm playing queen for 45. I'm playing my blank. I'm unloading this queue and getting out of here. But it is a tough proposition to make. Wasim is electing instead to exchange, which I think you can defend absolutely. But it's not a play I'd make.
Yeah, I don't know about that because the thing is that like if you have a 45-point play available and you know that average turns are like in the 30 range or something, that means in 2 turns you're scoring about 70 points. You know that your net. If you bank this 45 right now, you know you're easily going to be able to score into that 70 over 2 turns play. This exchange, it really depends on I'm going to get into a good draw and bingo. Now, in this case, he's lucky. He is going to bingo. But I didn't think that lead was necessarily like guaranteed to bingo. And that is something. Now, he's going to come back with a really good bingo because the E gets to complete his 7-letter envelope with envelope.
I want to go back quickly and talk about the exchange too, because whether or not to exchange is one decision, but Wasim very interestingly decided to hold EEN blank. It's very unintuitive to hold on to 2 E's, but I bet he looked at the tracking sheet and saw, hey, there's only 3 left in the game. Double E's are fine. It's really when you get that triple E, that's where you go into trouble. So I would say Wasim, in a way, deserves that bingo because he made a good tactical decision there to throw back and keep what I think a lot of people would not even consider holding there. Good choice. Really cool choice.
Yeah, I guess there were fewer E's, but one thing to remember, there was another E on Matt's rack that at the time, so I think there might have been 4 unseen to him.
Still 4 E's unseen this early in a game. Like I think it's okay to hold 2. I think it's clever and creative, and it paid off for him.
For sure. Yeah, that was actually only the second highest scoring envelope, just because envelope, CHE, and DOON scored a few more, but I like this placement. It's definitely a lot safer.
That's an interesting point. The underlap there. I mean, I think one might instinctively look to the triple word and think, okay, well, this is going to be the biggest score. He may not have done the hard comparison just because of that. I'm not sure because I don't know if envelope in the bottom would have been any worse because I guess with CHE it could have been dangerous, but there's only 1 W left. There's only 1 F left as Z was gone, so it wasn't going to be 2 killer most likely.
The M though is also a possibility, and it is what Matthew has on his rack right now. So Chem, I believe, is a Collins only. No, Chem I think is TWL. I don't know words, but there were options. So I think taking the conservative play with that lead is okay.
Yeah, and there is a crazy play that Matthew can play here. I doubt he sees it, but it's an extension. We'll let the chat look. It is through a word on this board.
I'd say, through or to a word. Oh, man.
Are we talking about infesting?
No, it's cooler than that. And it's a word that Canadians have to use a lot because me in Texas, it's 109 Fahrenheit, it's 44 Celsius every day. But if they want to complain about their Canadian heat, they have to use it.
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
You see it now? Yeah.
The chat is trolling us.
Found it. Humidex is the extension, making MEW and ICH. That is really cool. I'd be super surprised if any player outside of Nigel Richards notices that. But look at that. Bot even says it is Canadian. It combines your humidity and your temperature to give you a different number that is larger so you can complain when it is 75 and sunny outside or 25 Celsius and sunny outside. Unfortunately, Humidex is not going to get spotted on this board. It's going to be Hug instead for Matthew. And this leave is going to be make or break for him. That could go one of two ways. 2 consonants is going to be very bad for Matthew. He needs a vowel. And he's picked at least up another I. That'll give him some flexibility. That's going to help.
Yeah, and one thing that did is, or it didn't do by not playing Humidex, is there is a crazy underlap for Wasim of his own in that area of Reiki, making so many.
Reiki underneath, yeah, EWE, CHI, and DOOK. That is a ton of points. Wow. Wow.
You know, that's the kind of word that he might eventually arrive at looking at the options and starting to think, okay, what actually fits over there? You write down the E, but they go, the E has to go there, then I would have to put an I there, then I would have to put, okay, then you're like, oh, actually. So I might jump out of it after some work, depending on how much time he's willing to spend. But it looks like he's been playing pretty quick most of the game.
EW does take the back K in CSW as well, so he's got Kier set up right now, making Iuk, Chi, and Dor. He could also consider other options. I mean, Reiki is, I think, what's going to be best for him, but he could also consider playing KEIR, making EWE, just to score a little bit more. Lots of dynamic options for him underneath WHO, and we'll see which one he chooses.
Well, he might actually be looking at Fikir now off of the F and E infesting, making FE and ER as well. That does score decently. It scores 36 points, but those other plays have a bit more flash to them.
Oh, I want to address that spot to score just massive overlaps. I can't leave it alone. Oh, man, I'd want to do something to get rid of that.
To be fair, though, Fikir does block the best 2 bingo lanes left for 7, so I think there is a lot of merit to that.
With the lead, I think it's reasonable. You're right.
Especially Matthew only playing 2 tiles, you would think maybe he's very close to a bingo. The fight could be an option too, in the bottom left. So I think there's going to be it's a difficult decision. This is not a straightforward thing because you take more points and considering the fact that he himself may be thinking, well, I might not that far from getting into a bingo prone position. So do I want to close the board down yet? It's not really a big lead that he's holding on.
Yeah, so he opts, it looks like he's
staring at it.
Yeah, he hits his clock though. So he plays down Kier KIR, making 3 underlaps. Very nice, stylish looking play, and a bit more conservative than something like Fiker Liker, which would stick a tile out in the triple lane.
If you're Matthew here, what jumps out to me right away is Yip underneath Toonies. Just IIY is so gross to have together, and you'd like to do something to undouble that. Probably get rid of the Y as well. You're starting to look like, hey, I'm going to need a bingo in that M or N columns over on the right side to get back into this now. So
I don't think there are very many other options. That's the thing that strikes me. Like, what else would you put together here?
PYA on top of Hug randomly scores 40, making Pho and Yup. That's really gross.
I missed that altogether. Yeah.
Wow. And Primy, PRIMY, making FY is also an option for him.
That seems to be what he's considering right now.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I don't know. I think if he sees Paya, he has to take that just because that was 2 lanes on the left side of the board. You want to force Wasim to block those. You don't want to, in a low-scoring way. If you play Primey now, Wasim could have a nice overlap or something, and yeah, it looks like he's putting down Paya now. Nice play. But yeah. I think you want to force Wasim to address the spots in the board where bingos could occur.
If you were losing, why would you do your opponent's job and block? Pie is a good idea. Maybe the leave is not where we'd want it to be, but there are still absolutely ways where you could draw your way out of that. And scoring 40 points puts a ton of pressure. Blocking often is going to score less than some of your other options. And so he caught up. He's within 20 points now. And okay, so Wasim, he could play filial here, and he's electing to just play whatever this is. Is this even a word?
This is not a word.
This looks phony.
This is either infusion of filial or flail, but it's definitely not a word. And this time it's getting challenged.
Yeah, maybe mixing up glial in there as well. Glial, filial, flail. It's a lot of different words together, but it's not a word in this game. And Matthew immediately knocks it off. I'm very surprised. Filial's just a better play in the same spot. So I don't know if this is a word knowledge confusion or what's going on here, but that was very curious. And Matthew's probably excited to see, hey, you tried to block my lines and you couldn't. So that's great.
Yeah, that's why Paya worked. I mean, another option there was even ilial to set up filial.
Yeah, there were many plays to do what that play tried to do. It was so curious to see one come down so fast. That was also phony. Very interesting.
Yeah, and now Matt is only 20 points down with a lost turn. This now means he can come back within basically a tempo game. A tempo game, for those who don't know, it's basically a tie game on one player's turn, then the other player has a tempo advantage. They can score first. But if they score 30, then you can score 30. And it works out fine if you can time it such that if you're the second player, you get to start the end game. If the tempo player gets to start the end game, they will have the tempo advantage at the end of the game.
Let's take one moment to acknowledge, I've said this before, I'll say it again, it is extremely hard to play on a stream. It is very nerve-wracking. And so it's easy to play armchair quarterback in my chair or in your chair, but it is so hard to do what these guys do day in and day out for 31 games. So maybe just a little bit of human error there as well, from fatigue, from nerves as well.
And the chat points out he probably does not see manifesting right now, which would be a sweet find as well. These 4-letter extensions on this game have been ridiculous between Humidex and now manifesting. Yeah, if he sees that, that would be awesome.
That is really cool, and I think one of the things about this board right now is that ZED, there could be extensions I need to point in the game to that as well, and that he's only one letter off of Mirandized, for example. So there's going to be some fun stuff.
Yeah, that is super interesting. We'll see if that hits. Manifesting as well. What Matthew's facing right now is also what I think is some of the toughest situations in Scrabble, where you have pretty good knowledge of your opponent's rack. He's not sitting on a bingo. He would have played it if he had it. 5 of his letters. He has 2 L's, an A, an I, and an F. He's reasonably unbalanced and doesn't have many scoring options. And you're always afraid, I don't want to give him something when his rack is otherwise pretty poor. So I spend a ton of time at the turn after I challenge a word. It's really hard to make these plays. Is that a word? Infima. It looks like it is good. Interesting.
Yeah. And the chat does say this is a really good strategy, I think, for learning words. You have to know your extensions to phony bingos.
Exactly.
So
yes, Matthew did not manifest his own destiny there, and it looks like they are going to look this one up as well, so 5 additional points coming Matthew's way after that. That's actually going to put him in the lead by 4 points after the challenge and the 5-point bonus.
Yeah, what a big swing of things. I mean, to be fair, Wasim has won, I think, the total amount of points from phonies in the game, phonies and challenges in the game, given that he was able to sneak past a bingo. But still, these last 2 plays really helped Matthew out a lot.
Yeah, what a big swing.
Infima is not a word that's going to be known by everybody, especially given that it's a 6-letter word that's already plural. So infima is not a word, so you're not going to see it in studying your 7s and things like that. So I think double checking that is something that a lot of players might do.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm a math person. I've heard infimum and infimums. I don't think I've heard infima. So I feel like in common speak, it's a secondary plural even for the common word.
That coming from a resident statistician.
Yeah. I guess though I've heard maximums and maxima or minimums and minima. So infimums and infima, I guess, should both be words by that logic.
I will say the Scrabble lexicon feels incredibly arbitrary on words that do and don't pluralize the same way, but Collins does a very good job of keeping it more consistent. So yes, infima, I would definitely feel comfortable playing in this lexicon.
So it's nice to see Wasim playing alif, which is the first letter of the Urdu alphabet. You might read it as fila, but if you read in a language that's right to left, it says alif.
Yeah, I know it as aleph, not alif. That's a Hebrew versus Arabic, if I had to guess.
Yeah, the Hebrew versus Arabic pronunciation of the same idea.
Yeah.
What's crucial, I think, though, is that Wasim has finally played off the final F in this game. He is 0 for 3 on challenges of words of words with Fs in them. Festing was no good. Infima and that flyal play as well. And Matt's able to make a really nice play to get out of an ugly rack with Wairua.
Yeah, and that is a call-in. And so if we were watching an NWL game right now, I mean, that rack, I don't know what you would even do. Wairua just completely changes the landscape of that play.
Yeah, just a huge bailout opportunity. He's got to be happy with that. Man, this is a tough rack for Wasim now. I'm not seeing any options for bingos that jump out, and this is so sad to be on a bingo-prone rack and not to be able to do anything with it. Oh, man, this is going to be tough. It looks like he's set up a Flirred, Flirred, which is also invalid. So I wonder if he's going to lose another F turn here.
Where would that play?
DI, EF and DI on top of Fila or Alif, depending on which way you read. But I don't think Flirred is going to be good, whether you read it left to right or right to left. And I think Matthew would challenge that one, especially with what it does to the score of the game.
Yeah, Daryl, you're saying is the best.
I was convinced Flirred was good, so I would have been in the same boat.
Yeah, I was just going to say Darilf is the backwards of it. And I know MILF is one of those words that is a call-in, so I'm trying to figure out the acronym of Darilf.
Yeah, we don't need to go into on the stream what the acronyms of Darilf could be. We'll leave that up to the chat, and we're not going to say those words out loud. But we will see if Wasim decides to pull the trigger on Flirred, if Matthew challenges. Otherwise, this is an incredibly challenging turn for Wasim. I almost wonder if I sneak like I'm fishing for a Fila bingo, like a play on top of Fila, and then get it instead try to hit like a 10-letter bingo down to the ZED.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. The ZED thing, like, if you actually think about it for a minute, you're like, oh yeah, a lot of bingos could hit there. But you need to think about that for a minute. You don't naturally look to play through 3 tiles for 10s because you don't study 10-letter words. So, yeah, it's this is that's the kind of processing of information that I think often separates a 1900 player from a 2000 or 2100 player. They'll often, the 2000, 2100 players will look at Zed and see that as an opportunity for bingos, whereas a 1900 might just not think about that option.
If I'm Wasim here, I would sit at this rack. I'd get so frustrated by just the lack of options that do anything. We're literally looking at playing like Irid through the eye and Infima for nothing. And the longer I sit here and think, the more I realize, wow, there is just nothing for me to do except try to play Flirred. So maybe that's what I would end up having to do here. This is crazy.
Yeah, I think Rid might just be better than anything else, and just plug a dump of the R and the D and try again, hope for the best. It looks like he's considering that option. It's definitely tough as coming off maybe a couple of errors and then trying to salvage that and that's where it's going. Is like this game is actually close. I mean, it's not really cause for alarm. If you look at all things being equal, but just maybe coming off of a few challenges that not going your way, the pressure it becomes even more intense.
Yeah, I know I struggle a lot with making a mistake in a game, knowing I've lost a turn or a challenge, or even just missed a bingo, and then trying to keep my head on straight after that. I get so angry at myself. I feel like I don't deserve to win the game. And of course, that's silly. That's nonsense. We've seen Wasim make some good plays. We've seen Matthew make mistakes too. And in Scrabble, somebody deserves to win every game just because, well, somebody has to. So, hopefully Wasim is able to keep things straight and make some good choices.
Yeah, and apologies. We know the clocks weren't working for a second there, and we need to update the scores too as a result. We're getting that fixed right now.
So it looks like RID does come down, keeping an incredibly dynamic and flexible EILR leave. If I'm Matthew, I'm doing that right away. Oh yeah, drop that Q. Fine. If you draw a bingo that ends in an E or an A, you can do it, but I am gonna block. I'm gonna play off my worst tile, and I'm gonna score a little bit in the process. So now Wasim is going to get to try to find one of those bingos that does end with one of those letters, and of course, I think he's going to have quite a few options. Fragile is going to fit. Gracile, Gracile, is going to fit as well. Larridge, Nargile, Regalia. He's got plenty of options, and it's really just a matter of him deciding which one he wants to play. Maybe he spends some time thinking about bingoing to the A with like Galleria or something similar. He might look to the W, but I doubt that's going to happen. I doubt that's there. And maybe he looks to the ZED as well.
Yeah, I was just double checking, and there's nothing to the ZED right now, even though it looks pretty possible that there would be something, but not that I can find.
Yeah, I feel like a best phony to the ZED right now. I feel like Jack could come up with something creative if you want to try that right now. But this will be a tight game. I mean, Matt does have a bingo spelled out on his rack, and we'll see if whatever Wasim decides to do will allow him to play off all 7 tiles. It doesn't seem likely, but you don't know.
Really depends on where that E is going to end up. If he elects for some reason to play Regalia, that's going to give back Draceras, which is going to be huge. But he's electing to play, it looks like Fragile. Interesting that he chooses another F word after all the turns he's lost on Fs. Also interesting that he's putting the blank on the triple letter, as opposed to some of the other options that maybe don't do that, such as Larridge. A Regalia, I think, would actually be one of his highest scoring options here, but by not making that play, he, I believe, is taking away a bingo from Tunnicliffe.
Yeah, like I was thinking Nargile, but maybe he's thinking that why put another high prob tile in there if I can put something that's lower probability and make it just a little bit tougher for Matthew to end up bingoing through. An F is kind of not such a great letter to have.
I would just rather put the G on that triple letter. I'd make the blank a C and play Gricile in the same spot. He scores significantly more in a game that could be very tight. I hope he doesn't come back to regret that. But he had many options there. This is the one he opts with, and importantly, he doesn't give back Draceras to Matthew. So that is big.
Yeah, he's drawn. We'll see follow-up rack. Would play through an R for Veronica if it was in the right position. So he's going to have some choices to make in this for next turn. But for Matthew right now, what to do is not going to be straightforward. I think he definitely wants to uncouple some of these letters, and he probably can't score a lot. It's worth knowing that UWK does take the F. So he may just want to play in the corner, maybe something if he's thinking to keep the board open, then he could play RAS and see if that works out. I'm not sure that there's much that's great here.
Our score widget has broken. The score we're displaying right now does not give Wasim the points for his most recent bingo. Fragile scored 64, so that should put Wasim at 373. This is a 50-point game in Wasim's favor currently. But Matthew is importantly sitting on 2 S's. That spot at the bottom with EWKS is his, and it is his turn as well. So he's got some opportunities to try and score some points and get back in this one. There are also only, excuse me, I apologize. That was bad information I was fed, so I won't say that anymore. Matthew makes a very high-scoring play of DOSS in the bottom to make this nearly a neck-and-neck game once again, though he has blown up his rack and given up most of his good things. Wasim is very close to, I believe, Co-Invade is good, and just a bummer that doesn't quite fit. Matthew did have Dosas in the bottom at the same spot, DOSAS. That would have made Chia and extended all the way to Doors. That would have been significantly more points for him. But it does look like we're sort of starting to run out of vowels in this game. And maybe that was part of the rationale by foregoing those points. Or maybe he just didn't spot it. There's so many dynamic places to overlap in that bottom left corner that who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, just check. Co-invade is not valid, I don't think.
Oh, is it Voidance?
Voidance is there, yeah.
Okay,
that would have been made.
Voidance is the one. I mix that one up every single time. Voidance, okay. Either way, it doesn't play to or through that D, so we don't have to worry about that. Veronica doesn't quite fit through the R as well, so this is an interesting rack. But it does have, importantly, the C and the V, which are 2 of the best defensive tiles in Scrabble. He does have a small lead and a tempo, and maybe he's going to be able to wield those in such a way that he can block some of this board up and try to outrun Matthew and win this game.
Yeah, the most logical thing is if you're trying to keep it tight, is how can you muck up the lanes in Fragile? I think the top right corner, it's difficult to end with an A or W, so you may just leave it alone, even though that might be a place where someone would play just to score some points with a 2-letter word. So that is something to also consider. But I think, what are the options? He seems to be looking at Kava and putting Kava down. So
one thing Wasim probably sees that we can't right now, our script is having some issues. The unseen pool to Wasim going into that play, ABBEJLLMRRTT. Only 2 unseen vowels to Wasim. And Matthew does happen to have both of them, but crucially, he's able to hold on to EINO when we know he's going to be drawing a bunch of consonants.
That's very interesting, and maybe also the unseen J would have been a reason to block the A in the top right.
Yes.
So now for Matthew, this is going to be difficult because probably Wasim will find one way or another to get squeeze some points out of that J, and this means that for Matthew, is he going to have to try to play for the possibility of threatening some kind of bingo? With these letters, it may not be possible. This might be some kind of trench warfare that he's going to try to get inches way closer that he can maybe somehow take that.
Yeah, man, the unseen pool now. There are 2 in the bag for Matthew as he suffers from a 29-point lead. BEIJLMNOT unseen to Matthew. Of course, we know that all of the vowels are still on Wasim's rack, and he's going to only be able to pull consonants after this, but he's probably hoping to do something kind of similar to what we saw in a previous game with Alex Seaholm, where he can open up a second spot to maybe pull a bingo and catch Wasim in a place. There are already 2 bingo lines. He's got down to the D. He's got through all the letters in Fragile. But if he plays 2 or more tiles, well, if he plays more than 2, he can't bingo. If he plays exactly 2, Wasim has perfect knowledge of his rack. So he'll have to find a 2-tile fish that allows him to bingo in both spots that Wasim can't possibly block both of them. Or he'll need to make a 1-tile fish that leaves Wasim guessing. And I don't know what he's going to decide here. We have perfect knowledge, and we can see that he's more or less, from what I can tell, dead in the water with what he can possibly draw. But Matthew is very creative, as Sean mentioned earlier, with his play, and has a lot of personality as well, and he may find something really cool here. We'll have to stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I think maybe even though instinctively one might say, okay, let's get rid of those R's. Maybe playing the L off, hoping to, threaten in E on bartered. Get if you're thinking of fishing for the E. Now the problem with trying to fish for an E is that you're expecting that if your opponent had an E, that's the type of tile they would hold on to for some time. So it's just a very tough thing to work out all the possibilities and find that one tile perhaps that would let you bingo in those two spots you said. So, but I think E would be aberrate and bartered.
Yeah, it's a really tough position. I don't envy Matthew going through all the possibilities.
And let's see, if he pulls a T, he may be able to play Brattled down to the D, although I'm not seeing if he's able to pull anything else through that. He does have the ABLE, so that BLE is going to give him some flexibility for bingos through Fragile. And I think it's going to be difficult for Wasim to block everything available all at once. JEON looks like it could go above Fragile, but it doesn't address the D. He'd have to play something that goes underneath to address both lines, and there's nothing that he can really do there, just given the vowels he has.
Yeah, that seems like a very fruitful idea from Matthew's perspective.
And this is tricky, and of course we have a good idea of what's in the bag. There is an L in the bag, and there is a B in the bag, unseen to Matthew, if what I'm seeing is correct. So LB is what he could possibly draw, but of course Matthew doesn't know that. To Matthew, there are many different letters he could draw. So eventually he is just going to drop an R. He gets 4 points for that. Crucially, he could have gotten 6 points if he had played it between AE and the O. Making arrow, and he picks up an additional L, which I don't see it if it's there, but I'm not very good at Scrabble. I'll lean into chat. Y'all let me know if Matthew pulled any sort of bingo. What I'm seeing is Ballater through an O and Bethrall are the only things available to Matthew Tunnicliffe, and I think that's going to be it for this game. Wasim, though, doesn't know that. Wasim sees 2 Bs, so ABBELLRT, unseen to Wasim, and he's going to have to do a whole lot of diligence, making sure he's not missing anything or he is blocking what there could be. ABBELLRT, unseen once again. So he is playing this one pretty quickly. He's just gone straight to Jingo. I guess he assumes that there's nothing that is going to play down to that D just because there's only 2 vowels unseen, and he's correct. He feels as long as he can address both the floating A and the floating I, he's good to go in this game. He does pick up Jingo now, but that's going to do it for him, I think, in any case, independent of what he's got. Should be 100% to win. Like instead, he's thinking about playing Hota here. He's probably trying to figure out ways he can go out in 2 and maximize his spread, and maybe Jingo didn't give him what he wanted in terms of going out in 2. Maybe he saw something else as well, but
as long as he doesn't slot the O somewhere for a Ballater, it seems that anything will win. But that would be the only missing potent error that could be made by a player.
Again, on stream, these situations where everybody watching knows you're 100% to win except you, these are excruciating, and I will sometimes spend a long time in these situations. I think I've peeved Will Anderson before by wasting 5 minutes in an end game that he knows he's lost, but I don't know. Take your time, Wasim. It's okay. We know you've got the game, but you do what you think is best to win the game, whatever that may be. This is the 2022 Scrabble Players Championship. 300 diehard Scrabble fanatics meet in Baltimore, Maryland for a 5-day Scrabble tournament. We are wrapping up day 2 of our play. Day 3 is going to see a different commentary team. We're going to continue with Morris Greenberg. He'll be joined by Jared Capel in the morning. and I believe by, oh man, I've forgotten her name, but we'll have another commentator in the afternoon.
Annette Oberstad.
Annette Oberstad joining in the afternoon, and that'll be your team for days 3, 4, and 5. Days 3, 4, and 5 will alternate. We'll get some NWL games. We'll get some some Collins games as well. And day 5 is going to be the grand finals. The players in first and second from each division. After day 4, we'll play in a best of 5 for the whole enchilada.
Yeah, and for those not familiar, we'll talk more tomorrow. But Annette actually has recently come into Scrabble. She was originally a poker player who won. I think she was the youngest World Series poker bracelet winner, and she's now more recently switched to Scrabble and has really loved it. So, but poker players are super strategic, have really good sense of positioning and advantage in a situation. I think she can provide a lot of insight for that.
That'll be super cool to see. You know, there's a lot of overlap between different games and Scrabble. There's a lot of chess personalities in Scrabble. A lot of poker has made its way into Scrabble now, and some Boggle players as well. But it's super interesting to see what kind of facets of strategy people bring with different backgrounds. Nerds are nerds. We all love games, and we all love thinking and strategy and all that. But yeah, that'll be super interesting, the commentary she's able to provide. Matt decided to ball out with Baller, and that's going to be more or less it for this game. Wasim's just got to make some plays and get this thing over with, but it is his to lose.
Yeah, that was. I was going to say we're all ballers when you were talking about nerds, but you beat me to it.
I'll get some standings updates for y'all on some of the other divisions. Popping over to TWL in Division 1 right now. It looks like through round 14, first place at 11-3 is Joey Kravchik, with Robin Pollock Daniel still pending her game. She could jump to 11-3 as well. She's currently 10-3. At Joey's heels as well, Michael Fagan and Joe Edley are at 10-4, and Ori Swift is pending a game as well. He could make the jump up to 10-4 as well. In the CSW division, I'm going to pull up some standings for y'all now. Obviously, we're pending this one, but Ben Schoenbrunn currently in first place at 11-3. Alex Seaholm just behind him at 11-3. And Wasim will actually leapfrog Alec and jump into second with this victory at 11-3 as well. Joshua Castellano is at 10-4 at their heels.
But it looks like their game has officially finished. And the final score of 429 to 397 with Matt's outplay. So I think Wasim is going to continue to be towards the top of the standings. We'll see on day 4 will be the next day. We'll stream Collins Solve. Tomorrow will be NWL. But we'll see if he still has maintained that on day 4 and if we can stream him more.
If you're having fun today, I just want to make a quick plug. If you're new to Scrabble, check out the link we just posted in chat. The NASPA Games sanctions many tournament games. There's a number of local clubs in many metropolitan areas near you. There's a string of tournaments that go around almost every weekend in North America. There's at least a few tournaments. So definitely, if you're having fun, if you've never played Scrabble before, give it a spin. There are places to play online. There's a lot of live coverage that you're able to poke around in as well. Some cool pictures from this tournament. And yeah, Scrabble's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, and I super, super highly recommend that y'all get involved if you're the kind of nerd who likes playing games and spelling words and having a good time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. It's just, there's nothing I can quite describe like going into a Scrabble tournament, and it feels like almost a state of zen after not playing for a while, just and being able to concentrate entirely on this game that, as you've hopefully seen, has so many interesting decision-making choices, all these awesome word finds. It's just such a great time. And definitely if you've been interested in Scrabble before, or if you're now interested after the stream, check out the links we're providing.
So this is Matt Kanik signing off with Morris Greenberg and Sean Abbasi. Thanks to all of you for watching for today. We will have more coverage starting at 9 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow in NWL play for you. Days 3, 4, and 5 still yet to come at the 2022 Players Championship. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow.